Like Michael introduced, I joined the civil service in 1992. And back then, we still do undertake oath-taking ceremony. And looking at the conference topic today, public contract, I am trying to relate it to my own personal journey as having entered into a contract with the citizens and the government to give myself to the service of the king, country, and people. Having been appointed as the Finance Secretary on 14th August 2021, I would like to believe that this is the fruit of having fulfilled or abided by the contractual agreement I entered into in 1992. However, I continue to seek the blessings of Guru Rinpoche, Shabdungawan Namgyal, to be able to continue to fulfill the aspirations of His Majesty the King, the government, and the citizens. Today, as Finance Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, I firmly believe that the topic we are going to discuss today is of utmost importance to my country. I will be focusing on good governance. So starting with good governance is one of the 4 pillars of Bhutan's development philosophy, gross national happiness. So what is it? I personally believe it is about the process of making and implementing decisions. It is not about making the correct decision, but the best possible process for making those decisions which are correct for the country and helpful for the society. So as Finance Secretary, what is the mission of the Ministry of Finance? If you look at the current realities facing Bhutan, to quote some, we have the graduation of Bhutan from LIC to MIC by 2023. We have capital expenditures increasing. While capital expenditure is increasing, we also have underutilization on capital expenditure. As has already been pronounced by my minister, procurement irregularities, which is leading to cost and time overrun and increasing the cost of our investment. To look at other social issues, we have productive citizens leaving Bhutan, and I'm sure everybody can relate to it. Right now, with the pandemic, we have domestic revenue not being able, having difficulty in meeting the increasing recurrent expenditure. We have contraction in economic activities, which results in decelerating the economic growth. So my mission and vision for Ministry of Finance is to achieve economic self-reliance and stability towards a developed Bhutan by ensuring fiscal sustainability and ensuring macroeconomic stability. So the question is, how do we in the Ministry of Finance ensure fiscal sustainability? It is through effective resource mobilization on the one hand, while we also try to maintain prudent expenditure on the other. Yes, domestic resources may not be enough. We will have to resort to grants and loans. While resorting to the loans, we have to also ensure that we maintain a sustainable debt for the country. And to ensure macroeconomic stability, it has to be done through inclusive and diversified sustainable economic growth. So what is the guiding principle or the contract that we have to follow in the Ministry of Finance? Towards fulfilling this mission, the Ministry of Finance remains guided by Section 5 of Article 14 of the Constitution of the Kingdom of Bhutan, which states that the government shall exercise proper management of the monetary system and public finance. It shall ensure that servicing of public debt will not place an undue burden on future generations. This is a difficult task. How do we go about fulfilling this mandate of the Ministry of Finance? I would like to recall and take you all back to His Majesty's address on the 114th National Day on 17 December 2021. I quote, as underpinned in our age-old saying, the golden yoke of secular laws, Accountability must henceforth become the cornerstone of governance. We must correct those who deviate, be firm with those who do not deliver, replace those who are incompetent, and terminate those who underperform, and have therefore become a liability to our system and nation. We must not hesitate to expose those who engage in corrupt practices so that we send a strong signal to deter others from doing so. So I think these words from His Majesty articulates what good governance is all about. So why does good governance matter for the Ministry of Finance or for the country as a whole? As a developing nation, and recognizing the importance of prudent expenditure, especially in investment on infrastructure for private sector development, job creation, and boosting economic activities, the government allocates a substantial amount of capital budget on an annual basis. It has been increasing over the years, and in this current fiscal year, it is 49% of the budget is allocated for capital expenditure. Why I talk about capital expenditure? Because these expenditures on infrastructure developments are financed through external grants, loans, and internal borrowings. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, have we been able to reap the economic dividends from the increased spending on infrastructure? Like it has already been mentioned by my minister, there has been proliferation, expansion of substandard infrastructure without deriving optimal returns and burdening with high maintenance costs. Therefore, it is my top priority as well as timely now that we have a robust public procurement system and public investment management mechanism in place for effective and efficient prioritization, implementation, and utilization of the limited public resources while ascertaining the value for the money from public investment. So instead of just spending more, we need to strive to spend better. We should never seek to make our own lives easier at the expense of shifting the burden of debt to future generation. That would not be responsible. Instead, we should always seek to pass a secure and a self-reliant Bhutan to our future generations. Therefore, going forward, it is timely for us as decision makers and implementers to acknowledge the existing shortcomings in the public procurement system and re-engineer our thought process towards building a robust public procurement and public investment management. Public procurement, people usually, when I talk about public procurement and I listen to people, there is a misunderstanding in trying to think that public procurement means purchasing. So I would like to, first of all, as we set the tone for this conference, make a mention of what is public procurement. It is defined as the acquisition of goods and services and construction works to support government operations and to provide public goods and services. And why is the word public there in front of procurement? We all must know and take into account that because of all the goods, services, and construction works referred to are acquired with funds obtained through payment of taxes, it is through grants or loans to Bhutan or through fees paid for public goods and services. People, I would like to bring the focus to what is the goal of public procurement. It is to ensure that we award timely and cost-effective contracts to qualified contractors, suppliers, and service providers to supply goods and services to support government and public service operations in accordance with the principles and procedures established in governing public procurement rules. I hear a lot during my term in Department of National Properties spearheading public procurement. There is a tendency for people to sometimes not understand the difference between public procurement vis-a-vis private procurement. They always think that private procurement being very fast, efficient, but we have to understand that public procurement process cannot be like the private procurement, we have to be transparent, provide equal opportunities, and be non-discriminatory, such that the participants are able to know the actual means and processes of how contracts are managed and awarded. Public procurement has to also be responsive to the aspirations of its many stakeholders, unlike private procurement, where you can look at profit as the main motive, or you can exclude certain sectors of the, in case you are not aligned to certain people, you can exclude them as you're making your procurement. But in public procurement, we have to engage the citizens, the taxpayers, the electorate, elected officials and management, and procurement officers, where we may have conflicting objectives at different points of time. I would like to also state that public procurement we as civil servants have to be accountable for whatever we do, unlike private procurement. Private procurement they are not subject to scrutiny of the public. But whereas we as public servants, we are accountable to the citizens and to the taxpayers and subject to scrutiny. Therefore, I would like to say that good governance in public procurement is very essential. And what are the governance issues that we face in public procurement today? Please allow me to put it bluntly. We take a look around us. Some of the examples we see and hear about roads with potholes, buildings with cracks, irrigation channel without water, health and education infrastructure without adequate targeted beneficiaries to avail services, farm roads which are not pliable. A specific, if I can just recall, in last evening's BBS News, there was a coverage which mentioned that new 32 million water project fails to deliver. People disappointed in her. Why do such incidents occur? That is the question we all have to ask ourselves time and again. Such incidents occur because of procuring substandard materials or employing irresponsible personnel for carrying out these works and services. Sometimes these incidents are also due to some of the officials indulging in corrupt practices like colluding with contractors. There is no due diligence during the selection and award of contractors. In some cases, we have due diligence essential in public procurement as people's money. There is no diligence in carrying out public procurement. And this we have to be very mindful, because this is people's money and safety are at stake. This calls for utmost honesty, ethics, and transparency in all actions that the public officials perform. So now going on to how good governance is being achieved, or how do we want good governance to be achieved through public procurement? First, I would like to talk about the procurement rules and regulations. The procurement rules and regulations have undergone major reforms. It started in 2009, and right now we have the Procurement Rules and Regulations 2019, which has been a major reform in public procurement. These reforms were not carried out in isolation. It was carried out through a series of consultation with relevant stakeholders. Multi-sectoral task force were established. We have also taken feedback, recommendations from procuring agencies, and recommendations from the Public Procurement Review Report by the Royal Audit Authority, and also resolutions passed by the National Council of Bhutan on procurement. Looking back to today, we have, with the onset of COVID-19, there is disruption across all sectors, especially on ongoing construction activities and supplies. To align the procurement procedures with this situation that we are facing, the Ministry of Finance declared COVID-19 pandemic as a force majeure with effect from 24th March 2020. And in addition to the principles we have already in the procurement rules and regulations, we have additional principles like accountability, quality and timeliness, effectiveness and efficiency have been introduced in the simplified rules and regulations of 2020 and 2021. So the question is, why do we have rules? People always want to know, why do we have rules? I would like to stress that these rules are to guide budgetary bodies to procure responsibly and achieve public value. The ability and responsibility to achieve public value through procurement is applicable to everyone involved in the procurement process within an agency, and not just the procurement team. The rules also include government's requirements around priority outcomes that must be leveraged through designated contracts. And it is also to provide and maintain integrity of government procurement through the established process that are consistent and predictable, making it easier for procuring agencies and suppliers to engage with each other. The third topic that I would like to cover in relation to governance and procurement is the electronic government procurement, which my minister has also touched. Leveraging technology in this day and age is very important. This is not only important for being efficient and effective, but it is also important to reduce rent-seeking behaviors of public officials as they carry out the day-to-day procurement functions. So therefore, the Ministry of Finance has initiated the development of the electronic government procurement system and started its implementation in 2017. Currently, we have finished phase 2 of the EGP system, and we are now in phase 3, and we are hopeful that it will be completed by the end of the year 2022. With this, I hope it will enhance public's trust and confidence in the government and bring about more participation, and not only engage our people in trusting the government's procurement system. The fourth topic that I would like to touch on in enhancing governance is through public procurement is building on the professionalism of the people who are required to carry out these functions. The procurement function is a key in any organization, whether it is the large ministry, small ministry, big agency. Procurement function is there in every agency, irrespective of its size. And it is very important that the environment in which procurement is carried out has to be competitive and continuously changing. Aligning to this, capacity development by way of continued professional development for the procurement professionals is of utmost importance. The Bhutan's procurement cadre was created in 2006, and this has initiated and led to the start of professionalizing of the procurement function in the government of Bhutan. The fifth topic I would like to talk on is on centralized procurement. In the context of Bhutan, we all know we are an import-driven country. It is vital for us to ensure public value through aggregate demand and reduction in cost. Therefore, it is important that we always ensure that we use all the methods possible to ensure that we target promoting local manufacturers, reduce administrative burden on procuring agencies, as well as ensure procuring goods that are of quality and also timeliness. However, we still face challenges and issues. The government is not able to achieve quality and services. We see a lot of media coverage on that. Accountability, as stressed by His Majesty the King, is also lacking. And it is therefore important that we still move forward. What is it that we need to do? Understanding the strategic importance of public procurement in creating not only national fiscal space and national policy space, as well as public financial management, it is important to pursue good governance through public procurement. Therefore, we are now embarking on developing an accountability framework and awaiting technical clearance before we roll it out. This will ensure that while the rules and regulations are in place, The very people who have to carry out the procurement functions also know what are their roles and responsibilities, and if they do not deliver or live up to that, what they are going to be accountable for, or what are the actions that are going to be taken. It is also important to continue to build the confidence and trust of our citizens and the public. Therefore, review of grievance redressal framework is necessary so that arbitrary exercise of powers by public servants to prevent corruption or perceived corruption is also reduced. Procurement reform is being undertaken to be ready for the 21st century, and we will also enhance the electronic government procurement system to transition to a tech-driven economy and reduce rent-seeking behaviors in public servants. Let me conclude by emphasizing that unity of purpose and hearts is crucial to take our country forward and fulfill the aspirations of His Majesty the King. Therefore, I firmly believe, if not now, then when? If not us, then whom? On His Majesty's 42nd birth anniversary, I pledge to rededicate and recommit to serve the Tawassum with dedication, perseverance, and fortitude. I will strive for dimensions of good governance like effective government, trust in institutions and leaders, and eliminate corruption are achieved and addressed through public procurement, which are in conformity with the Constitution and the laws, and make a procurement system which is world-class, matching best practices in the world. The integrity of the procurement process should assure confidence in the public procurement system. Thank you and wish you all the best.